I gotta say, your friend is depressing.
Oh, feliz como pinto no lixo. Mas vocês not, but you guys, I'm speaking Portuguese now. You guys don't have that. I'm often as happy as a chicken in garbage. So that's good.
All right.
Olá pessoal, today I am talking about a super hot topic. What is the difference between European Portuguese and Brazilian Portuguese? Yes, they are the same language, and if you've been watching my videos, particularly this one on my Portuguese journey, you'll know that I've lived in both Brazil and Portugal, and I love both forms of the language and both cultures very dearly. So of course you're only going to be focusing on learning one of these variations, but that doesn't mean you're not going to come up against the other one sometime, and you need to make some decisions about the pronunciation, the vocabulary, and even the grammatical structures that you are going to choose to use in order to be consistent. So this first episode is all about pronunciation. I am joined by two fantastic friends, one from Portugal and one from Brazil, to help me explain this to you. So I hope you enjoy exploring all of the fascinating differences with us. So I'm joined today by two lovely friends who are going to help me explain these differences between European Portuguese and Brazilian Portuguese pronunciation. So would you like to start by introducing yourself and telling us exactly where you're from? Because of course we understand that accents are different all across Brazil and of course all across Portugal as well.
Sure. So hello, I'm Carol. I'm from Belo Horizonte in the state of Minas Gerais in the southeast of Brazil.
And my name is Leonardo, and hopefully some of you will recognize me from my own YouTube channel, Portuguese with Leo, and I'm from Lisbon, Portugal.
Perfect. So let's get started then. The first sound that I wanted to cover with you guys that is pretty different is when words end in E. Okay, because the Brazilians would use what is actually the I in Portugal, an E sound, and in Portugal it's more of an like that.
It's a very caveman style E. It's
yeah, so how would you describe that E?
As a caveman.
Okay.
Like a very rough sound.
So like a
Yeah. Is the right sound.
And that sounds to you completely different.
Yeah, for me it's like G.
Yeah, so how is it like the E?
Let's say, for example, the word health. So, saúde. And you?
Saúde.
It's almost like you're cutting it off at the end, but you really pronounce it. So you would say...
Saúde.
And I would say saúde.
Okay, so let's hear a couple more words like that side by side.
Saúde.
Saúde.
Onde.
Onde.
Okay, so next up is the D sound. So in European Portuguese, this is quite a soft, it's not like the English D, is it? It's not like a hard D.
Softer D.
How would you describe making that in your mouth, that sound?
It's not a plosive D, so you don't breathe out air, you just D without D.
And the tongue is quite close to the T.
Yeah.
The.
Yeah, the tongue is behind the teeth. Yeah.
The. So the word day, for example, would be?
Dia.
Dia.
Yeah.
Dia. Nice and soft. And you guys would say?
In our case, I think we kind of add the G, like dia, bom dia.
Exactly.
So that's how people sometimes make fun of us when they're just like comparing to the European Portuguese pronunciation. They say, oh, so there is a G like dia. Yeah,
no,
a kind of G we add to the dia.
Yeah, and actually that sound, that j sound doesn't exist at all in European Portuguese.
Not that I can think of.
No.
It's a very festive sound. They're the festive ones.
But yeah, like the Brazilian culture is really festive. Once I was asking my friend from Portugal, there is an expression in Portuguese from Brazil that's like when you have a kind of chicken so happy, like walking in the middle of the garbage, for example. And then I asked my friend from Portugal if there is an expression similar here. And she told me that maybe not, because it's a kind of a spirit they don't have in Portugal. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That's why the language brings us a culture.
Do you agree with that?
I gotta say, your friend is depressing. That is not, we may not have that expression, but we're very happy and festive too.
Wait, how do you, I want to know what this phrase is about a chicken in the middle of the garbage.
Actually, it's like the little chicken, like feliz como pinto no lixo.
Oh, feliz como pinto no lixo. Mas vocês not, but you guys, I'm speaking Portuguese now, you guys don't have that.
We don't have that. We're just
super happy.
We're just super happy.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to use that. I'm often as happy as a chicken in garbage. So that's good.
All right. Dia.
Dia.
Difícil.
Difícil.
All right, next one is the double R sound, or when a word begins with an R. Now, people get super upset about this in European Portuguese because it's a difficult one, but there's actually two options, isn't there, for this? Like in the north, they will actually roll the R.
Some people roll the R. Not everyone. Not in the north, maybe. Or in the north, but not everyone. It's much more common to just have the rougher French-sounding R. Yeah, very good.
In the center of the country, for example, in Coimbra, because I work in Coimbra sometimes, so they say this roll R sometimes. So.
Yeah, my neighbour says it, r,
Yeah.
r. So the two options then here are r and
ch. Yeah.
ch. People get you need a lot of phlegm, don't you, in the throat?
I think so, yeah.
That's the secret.
I think older people will maybe do the roll their R's, but our generation tends to a lot more just do the ch sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. But you guys, none of that. But again, it's kind of different in Brazil.
There are some
places.
people, I also, for example, remember a reporter, like in Brazilian TV, using this roll R. So I wouldn't say like there is no roll R, but yes, much less common.
So how would you guys say, for example, the word car?
Seria carro.
Carro. So it's more like a very soft ch. It's not the ch like these guys do, just a softer.
We say carro, and you say...
Carro.
So yours is halfway between the European Portuguese R and the English H.
Exactly. And
That's a good way of describing it.
That's the reason. I think this is the reason why sometimes here in Portugal, when people say, like, for example, how are you? They tend to say, how are you? Maybe because this R from carro or rato, it's mouse, it's a little bit farther than our R for rato or carro. A little bit smoother, I would say. I'm not saying it's the same sound. It's not. But maybe this helps me say, for example, how are you?
Or help.
Yeah.
Or help.
Yeah, good one. So let's listen to a couple of those words side by side.
Rico.
Rico.
Carro.
Carro.
If you need some extra help with your European Portuguese pronunciation, don't forget they have a free guide that you can download. The link will be in the description. Okay, so on to my favourite one now, when words end in an L. Now, I actually heard, I think it was a Brazilian comedian that was like, do the Portuguese have honey on the roof of their mouth or something when they say an L? Because they're like, what's your name, Miguel? Like, they're like licking the...
Yeah.
So how does it sound when a word ends in L in European Portuguese? So, for example, the word hotel.
Hotel. Hotel.
Hotel. Now, we call that the dark L, when you bring your tongue right back further in your throat to make that really, like, deep sound. Hotel.
Hotel. Yeah.
But you guys, different, completely.
A very shy L, I would say. Hotel.
I would call it a U.
It's more like a W, actually.
For me, it's an L.
Well, yeah, but I'm comparing the sound in English. So hotel.
For sure.
Hotel. Like a...
Hotel.
Yeah.
Brazil.
Brazil. Yeah,
Brazil.
Exactly.
And we would say Brazil.
Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can also talk about another thing in this word.
Yeah?
Say again, Leo.
Oh, the A? Brazil.
Brazil.
Yeah, so can you see the difference there? Leo has a much more closed A sound. Brazil. And you say...
So open. Brazil.
Yeah, so they're open, they just want to like welcome everyone. I love that, yeah. That's why it is much harder, I think, to achieve the sounds of European Portuguese because they're so much closed and so much down like in the throat. But yeah, let's listen to those L words side by side.
Mel.
Mel.
Hotel.
Hotel.
The E sound in European Portuguese, we have three different levels. We have the E, and U. So the we've already talked about, the caveman sound, which is what we're going to call it from now on.
All right, caveman sound is good.
Yeah, so this middle, like, E, for example, the word Portuguese, how would you say that?
Português.
Okay. Now, when I lived in Brazil, I would hear it would sound quite a lot different. People would say Português.
Yes, and there's something interesting because I also make fun of this sometimes because I used to live, for example, in Brasilia. And it's very similar to Rio, the pronunciation in this case. Lots of people say Português or arroz. And lots of times I asked my friends, where is the I in arroz? Because there is no I, so it's arroz.
So she's saying she agrees with us, Portuguese.
Yes, I totally agree.
All right.
Totally agree, Leo.
Perfect.
I'm not into any kind of hierarchy about how people speak their languages. It's all, up to the individual. But that is really, really interesting. Okay, so let's listen to a couple of those words side by side.
Mês.
Mês.
Mas.
Mas.
Português.
Português.
Rapaz.
Rapaz.
So the next difference that I noticed a lot was the ending in S words. Well, actually, it's not always words that end in S, is it? Sometimes an S can be in the middle of the word and it's still a sh in European Portuguese.
It is, yeah.
So.
You want to know when and why?
Yeah, go on.
So words that end in S we pronounce it as a sh, and words where the S comes after a vowel and before a consonant, also that S is also pronounced as a sh.
Exactly. So, for example, a word ending in S, like the word parabéns.
Parabéns.
Or a word where it's an S in the middle of the word would be...
For example, Spain, the word for Spain is España, where you have an E, an S, and a P. So vowel S consonant, the S is pronounced sh.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But in Brazil, what happens when we go over there?
It's a whole story there, but yes. From where I come from, so I say parabéns, Espanha, as Leo said. But another parts of the country, they speak differently. For example, in Rio, this amazing city, there's an interesting story to tell about it, because when the royal family from Portugal, in the beginning of the 19th century, they were running away from Napoleon, they went to Brazil and they settled down in Rio. So this sh from the S, from the Portuguese, is also the S from the Cariocas, people that live in Rio. So they say parabéns, too, as Leo says. Yeah. But I say parabéns.
Beautiful. See, I didn't even know that. I'm getting a history lesson in the evolution of Portuguese here. I love it. Brilliant. So let's hear a couple of those words side by side.
Parabéns.
Parabéns.
Fresco.
Fresco.
So the next letter I wanted to discuss is the T sound. So in European Portuguese, much like the D sound, it's quite soft, isn't it? In European Portuguese.
So it's just a regular T, but just softer than English. Again, you don't breathe out air. You don't do ta, like talk the streets.
Oh, nice.
You would just do t. So much less intense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. But in Brazil,
é diferente.
Diferente.
Exactly.
We got another ch here.
We got another
much
festive
like
sound.
Yeah, like the D becomes that kind of
It's very similar. It's another G maybe that we add to diferente.
So
gente.
Yeah, one of the words that the Brazilians say all the time is gente.
Gente, é diferente.
Whereas actually in European Portuguese the word gente is one syllable. How would you say?
Gente.
Yeah.
Gente, diferente.
Gente, diferente.
There you go.
Beautiful.
Gente.
Gente.
Diferente.
Diferente.
We've already talked about the R when it's the beginning of the word, or a double R, giving us that h in European Portuguese. But what about when it's just a normal R, just a one R by itself, either in the middle of the word or an end? How would the Portuguese say that?
So we would just pronounce it. Let me think. No, there's no way to describe it. It would actually, I can't describe it for English speakers. So we'd pronounce it the same way you pronounce the T in catapult, just a ra. Yeah, unless you're British and you say catapult.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But if you're Americans and you say catapult, that is how you pronounce the R. So
that's true. Where did you read that?
I came up with it.
That's good. Okay, yeah. And I actually really like the word catapult because it's kind of like that little because basically the way I describe it is just like a tap on the roof of your mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's kind of like, you can think of a catapult going bang.
Yeah.
Catapult.
Tada. Yeah.
So basically it's a r sound. R.
Yeah.
But in Brazil, there's a bunch of ways you can pronounce an R.
Yes. For example, from where I come from, the word closing would be to close. Actually, the verb would be fechar. Fechar. But I have to say that it's very common even to ignore the R and say fechar, as if the R was not there.
That's how I used to speak when I lived in Ceará.
And we would always say fechar.
Fechar. So you'd always hear that R.
Yeah.
But it's important to say that there are some parts of the country where they also say fechar, exactly as Leo says. My father is from São Paulo, so he says fechar.
The correct way.
No, there is no correct or incorrect way. That's the one thing that we are not saying in this video, Leo, or you'll be fired.
Sorry.
And then also in Sao Paulo, they also have more of an, in the middle of a word.
Yeah.
So, for example, the word porta, when I was in Ceará, they would say porta, like a h, but in Sao Paulo, they would actually say an sound.
It's like this. As in Ceará or in my state, Minas Gerais, in the capital where I come from, it's porta or porto. But in the, for example, countryside of my state or in countryside of São Paulo's state, this will be Porto. And the story is a little bit longer because in São Paulo, the capital of the state of São Paulo is Porto. So depending on where you go, you can listen Porto, Porto, or Porto.
And we just say Porto.
There's only one option.
Yeah, or for door, porta.
Muito bem.
Muito bem.
Let's hear those side by side.
Fechar.
Fechar.
Prazer.
Prazer.
So the next sound we want to discuss is, so for example, the word Q-U-E, what, or that, que, in European Portuguese. You say it?
That was correct.
Okay.
Que.
Que. And then Carol makes fun of me because she's like, que, because you do sound a little bit like you're dying. So you say it like,
Que.
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 And do you even have people who will pronounce it even more than that, ki?
Sometimes we even say que. Que isso? Que coisa é essa? The E is still a little bit like an I again, que. But que or ki. Always more open.
And that's exactly what we were talking about earlier with the closed E at the end of the words que. That's why you've got the...
Yeah, so this brings all the way back to the first word, which was with the final E. Your final E is always going to sound more like an I. Gente, ki, onde. And ours is very caveman-y, and we almost don't pronounce it. So we say onde, que, gente. Yeah, that's how we speak. Caveman in Portugal.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So let's listen to those last words side by side.
Que.
Que.
Porque.
Por quê?
Well, there you have it. 20 words pronounced completely differently in European Portuguese and Brazilian Portuguese. As I said before, I love both variations of the language and I find the differences endlessly fascinating. So thank you so much to my friends Leo and Carol for helping me explore this today. And it doesn't end there. If you want to learn more about the grammatical differences between European Portuguese and Brazilian Portuguese, then tune into my video next week because that is what we are going to be exploring. If you don't want to miss an episode, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure that you give it a like. And I will see you this time next week. Ciao for now.